Okay, so sadly, I have no conflicts to disclose, and all of these are my opinions. And I know that I do stand between you and lunch, so I will do my best to be quick. So I start with the disclaimer that I do not hate all technology, I promise, but I do want you to hear me out. I'll start with just kind of touching on a few places where AI and technology in general finds its way into clinical trials. I would like to know who's involved in clinical trials in the audience. Raise your hand if you, so a few. You know, there are good things and there are bad things. So AI platforms, we've already heard Dr. Jalil talk about how we use those to comb through the EMR quickly to find our patients. We have internal platforms that are great. External platforms, like some of the ones that she mentioned, we give a little pause there because it still takes a lot of human effort to go through this. And when you're at a large academic institution like we are, there's a long contracting process to grant access to the EMR. So this actually can slow you down, and we've actually had to abort using them because it's just taking too long. Central recruitment vendors, when you have a large sponsor, they often have these central recruitment things. They never work. So, you know, you go through a lot to get involved in them, to get IRB approval for them. And in my 18 years, I've never gotten a qualified patient through one of them. And that could just be because the trials that I'm involved on are complicated device or medical, you know, interventional trials. I think there's a place for them in the simple, like, do you have acne? Do you want to answer a survey? Sure, you qualify, come on in. But we don't do those. So for us, it doesn't work, but I know that they have it. They have their place. Patient monitoring, you know, Dr. Jalil talked about the wearable devices, the PROs. They are great when they work, but they often don't work. So we have to be realistic about this. You know, 10 years ago, the wearable devices looked like you were on house arrest, and patients hated them because they were odd. They were huge. They took a long time to charge, and they just did not work. Even now today, you would think with everybody wearing a small computer on their wrist that we would be much better at it, but we still have a long ways to go. I can tell you right now, every day, I pick up my phone when I wake up, and I have 3 emails from the 3 clinical trials with wearable devices saying that this patient has not uploaded their data. We get emails every single day about this. So when you're looking at wearable devices, make them easy to use for the patient. Same thing with the PROs. Make it simple. Don't make them take a second device around all day. You know, some of us have 2 cell phones for a reason. Patients don't want that. They will leave it at home. They will not charge it. They will not open it. Look for ways to integrate it on their personal cell phone. It sends them a simple message that is not as easy to ignore. I mean, we all get notifications for everything, and we know what we ignore. They're going to do the same thing. And your staff really don't like it because then the sponsor wants us to call the patient. Do you remember to put your watch on? Can you please charge it, connect it to the Wi-Fi? And then we also spend a lot of hours with the companies trying to figure out what's wrong with the device that we don't even have on us because it's with our patient, but we're trying to do the in-between, and that sucks a lot of your staff's time. Liability. If you have not thought about that in a clinical trial, you need to be thinking about that. Where does that liability lie? Is it you as the PI? Is it the sponsor? Is it the vendor? You need to read those contracts and know where that liability is. But when they work, it is wonderful, and they generate plentiful data that then you can use AI to analyze, right? You can look for patient adherence to wearing devices or answering the questions, taking their medications. You can detect adverse events trends earlier, like Dr. Jalil was saying, and predict patient outcomes to those treatments. We're also seeing in my world in operations, CROs and sponsors are using this to help shorten those startup activity timelines, site enrollment. They can use the AI to see where there are pitfalls. Is there a certain site doing something wrong a lot? We need to retrain them, and how we can mitigate risk. Telehealth, and really here I should have used home health instead of telehealth. But we're seeing a lot of these decentralized trials to get to people in rural areas, and that's great. But usually there's an aspect of home health providers going out to draw the labs, to give injections, to do things to keep them from coming to you in the clinic. And that sounds wonderful, but read the contract again, because every single one that I've seen come to us at Duke with home health, you are liable for what that home health agency is doing when they go to see your patients. But you do not choose the home health agency. You do not choose the coordinators or the nurses that go out there. You don't train them, but you have to sign off on that. So they still put them on your delegation of authority log, and you are to oversee people that you have never met and never will. So just know that, because a lot of people sign up for this without reading the fine print, and I don't let ours do that. We say no. We know that might limit availability to the trials, but if they won't take that liability, I don't want us to take it on. It's just not fair. And I will say often these home health agencies, if you can imagine, they're doing a lot, and they're not as ingrained in your trial as you are. So they make a lot of mistakes. There's a lot to then be followed up with your staff, a lot of deviations, a lot of missing data. So I feel like we have to weigh out the pros and cons of using home health and really think about when is it applicable and how can we reduce the burden to reduce the errors. Remote monitoring, this is another thing that sponsors will say, oh, we're just going to remotely monitor you. You don't have to pay, you don't need to be paid for this. It's going to take so much less time of your staff. That is not true at all. They want you to scan in papers to them. They want you available at all times during these visits. And remote is just not always better. Just like we talked about, like there are things that you need to see on the skin. There are papers and documents that these monitors need to see at your site to truly monitor for adherence. Because when the FDA comes knocking, you want to know that your monitor has done their job. So put your foot down and ask for in-person monitoring when you feel like it's necessary. And that's it.